Ahoy there, my hearties! I'm Kev Moore, your skipper today, and I welcome you to the House of Hammer. We're all a bit out at sea today. Literally. On this episode, we're looking at the 1951 thriller The Dark Light, a film I've been looking forward to as covering for reasons that will become evident, I promise. The meat of this tale of maritime murder and double-dealing takes place on the Nab Tower Lighthouse, which is 12 miles south of Portsmouth. I love lighthouses because they're such an odd place for anyone to live and work. Think about it. You're stuck with a couple of colleagues in a building shaped like a giant toilet tube with a built-in disco at the top, and then all you've got to do is then make sure that nobody comes anywhere near any of you. The Dark Light isn't the first, and it'll definitely not be the last film to be based in one. And to paint a bigger picture, here's Smokey. Just Smokey. Like Plato, but a bit more hands-on.
Here, at the House of Hammer, we've been pretty lucky so far, where locations are concerned. Granted, they've not all been five-star residences. There was the somewhat Oxfam aesthetic of Death in High Heels, of course, and the pokey confines of someone's back office for much of River Patrol. But flash forward a little and we take up residence at the luscious Oakley Court and make use of the resplendent Gilston Park. Those two fine locales certainly help with our recurring theme of the problems of posh people. Every now and again, though, we get taken out of our lush surroundings and plonked somewhere a little bit different. Our first ever Hammer film, The Mystery of the Mary Celeste, took us onto a rather creaky vessel, while PC-49 took us around some of the finer motorways and greasy spoon cafes that this country has to offer. And now we land on a lighthouse, courtesy of today's film, The Dark Light. Something of an oxymoronic title, we know, but it does make sense when you know the plot of the film. It is nice to have a bit of a change of scenery, to be honest. A bit of sun, a bit of the old H2O, and of course the obligatory murder and intrigue aboard 10,000 tons of reinforced metal. As you do. It occurred to us all what a fabulous location these structures make. Perfect for thrillers and horrors, and if you're Michael Fassbender and Alicia Vikander, the perfect place to steal someone's baby and then fanny about for another 2 hours just trying to make us all cry. Sorry, that movie. Ugh. Doesn't change the fact, though, that lighthouses make great spots for filming. It's like any movie where you subject the characters to any form of isolation. You're going to get peril, paranoia, and if you're very, very lucky, a shape-shifting alien that can sprout legs from a severed head. But where Carpenter had the luxury of hundreds of miles of snow at his disposal, Hammer were fortunate enough to have quite a few miles of ocean to play around with too. Taking into consideration our non-UK listeners for just a second, let's just remind you, it can get pretty nippy around this country. So, when you're stuck out in the middle of the sea, just diving in and swimming to shore, without your gonads disappearing inside your body, never to be heard of again, it really isn't an option. Where would we be without lighthouses? I mean, it would be bad enough that ships were dashed upon the cruel rocks with loss of life and livelihood, but even worse, well, maybe, we'd lose an intriguing setting for feature films. There have been many over the years, ranging from 1931's Cape Forlorn, Thunder Rock in 1942, and a sadly laughable horror, Tower of Evil, from 1972. Whether any of these, or any others which I haven't gotten to yet, are any good or not, really isn't the point. The point is that this is rich ground, especially for the darker genres. You've got so much scope you could be dealing with. As I mentioned before, the isolation and the paranoia, but additionally, the mistrust, the loneliness, being away from loved ones, not being able to get a takeaway Parmo on a Friday night. The list is almost endless. As I said, the use of a lighthouse being a suitably creepy setting isn't a new thing. Edgar Allan Poe's last known and unfinished novel is narrated by a paranoid lighthouse keeper who is petrified that the building will come tumbling down around him. Martin Scorsese used the tropes to chilling effect in Shutter Island. Hell, even the Goonies made good use of it when trying to find One-Eyed Willie and evade the Fratellis. The Dark Light has the rare honour of being shot entirely in daylight, but it really would be hard to deny that using a lighthouse in the dark with the wind and rain and crashing waves, not to mention when you can throw in the swirling light or a shed load of fog into the mix, that locations such as these can be a dream for a filmmaker, especially if you're on a smaller budget than most. And Hammer have certainly been on that, ever since we joined them back in 1935 on episode number 1. But there is a flicker of light here. Are Hammer breaking out of the confines of the stately homes, the comfy manors, or even just a soundstage in a car park somewhere? The forthcoming results will be interesting. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm off to crash on some rocks somewhere and try to find myself a mermaid. Ta-da!
Before Adam Roach joins us for more light or dark light fun, I'll give you a little more background to the aforementioned filming location. It dates back to 1916 in the First World War. It was originally planned to be part of a set of defences with a giant underwater net to stop Britain losing any more boats to the Hun submarines that were picking on us quite a bit. And I'm not even making this up, it was a giant net. Anywho, as is the way with British builders, it took longer than expected while they sorted the quote out, and by the time one was built, the war was over. It seemed a bit of a shame to break it up, so it was decided that Nab Tower would take the place of a lifeboat not far from the Isle of Wight that marked the passage to Portsmouth. Through an ingenious system, the foundations were sunk and the tower moved into place. Unfortunately, despite being perfectly sound, the tower leans 3 degrees vertically to the northeast. And why not? It's as close to perfect as you could get, just don't bother taking the croquet set. Over the years, it's become quite the celebrity in its own right too, taking down enemy aircraft during World War II, saving countless lives throughout the decades, and nearly sinking the Dole America, a 10,000-ton ship full of pineapples and bananas in 1999. I'm not sure how the captain didn't notice the 89-foot tower, but he was probably on the Dole for quite a while after that too. Unlike Poe's lighthouse, Nab Tower still hasn't tumbled down around anyone. With foghorns that blast every 30 seconds and a light that has a range of 16 miles, nobody in Portsmouth ever sleeps. Well, that's enough jibber-jabber from me for now. Here's Adam, who's sporting the finest sou'wester you've ever seen, and yes, while I might be making it up about Insomniac Portsmouth, Adam is sporting the finest sou'wester. And pegleg.
At the outset of the Dark Light, we find ourselves confronted by a mystery. A ship and its crew alight upon a lonely lighthouse and find it silent. The teapot is still warm, all looks normal, except for the absence of everybody. You might think to yourselves, yes, very Mary Celeste, where's Bela Lugosi, etc. But in actual fact, the mystery of a vanishing at a lighthouse actually has its own analogue, dating all the way back to 1900, and the similarities between this case and the opening act of The Dark Light are eerily similar. On the night of 15th of December 1900, a ship passed the lighthouse on Flannan Isle in the Hebrides of Scotland, and noticed that the light there was dark. 11 days later, Captain Harvey of the Hesperus again passed the island, and noticed that the light was dark again. Well, this time they fired a rocket towards the island, hoping to receive some kind of response. When none came, a sailor named Joseph Moore was dispatched to the island to investigate. The 3 lighthouse keepers meant to be manning the place were James Ducat, Thomas Marshall, and Donald MacArthur, but no trace of them could be found. After checking the workload, they discovered that the work tasks scheduled for the day of the 15th of December had been completed, but the light had been dark that night when the Hesperus had passed. This means that the men must have vanished at some point in the afternoon of December 15th. At first, it was supposed that the 3 men must have left the island due to bad weather, but this threw up more puzzling questions. It was surely safer to sit out a storm in a lighthouse built upon a rock than to attempt to flee across the very waves threatening them. Why had a meal been laid out and left untouched? Why did a canary still sing merrily in its cage? And why had lamps been filled ready for lighting? On a nearby landing platform, the ship's crew discovered evidence that a storm had swept in at some point. A supply box had been smashed open and its contents strewn across the ground, despite being over 100 feet above sea level. Iron railings on the side of a path had been bent and twisted out of shape. Part of a railway track had been torn from its concrete moorings, and a huge rock weighing more than a ton had been displaced. Turf had also been ripped up from the tops of the cliffs 200 feet above sea level. But if all three men had been lost to some freakishly large wave, then why was there an oilskin left inside the lighthouse? If a sailor was going to go outside to battle the elements, he would not have done so in his undergarments. After a lengthy investigation by the Northern Lighthouse Board, it was concluded that, however improbable, this was likely the solution. The men must have been somehow swept away by a monster wave, but questions and theories persisted. The public's fascination with the case was unabated for years, giving rise to some remarkable explanations. Among the most plausible theories was that the trio had been kidnapped by foreign spies, or maybe they had collectively fled the island in order to escape their debts. The more fanciful answers to the riddle involved a giant seabird carrying the men off to their deaths, a giant sea serpent rising from the surf and devouring the men. One theory was that the men had somehow offended the sea itself and as a result had been carried away by a ghostly skeletal crew. As recently as 2018, a film, The Vanishing, was produced starring Gerard Butler and Peter Mullen and proposing a tangled theory involving dissolving mistrust between the men due to a washed-up fortune of gold bullion. But after over 100 years, a definitive answer has still not been provided and likely never will. But the story remains a tantalizing example of the world's fascination with the unknowable. One curious fact, though, all but overlooked at the time, might hold the answer, however inconceivable it might appear. As the first man onto Flannan Isle, Joseph Moore's account of finding no living soul at the lighthouse wasn't entirely true. As he passed up the 160 stone steps towards the lighthouse, Joseph Moore looked up to the cliffs and was met by the gaze of 3 black birds perched there on the rocks, eerily still against the sound of the beating waves, watching as he made his way towards one of the most puzzling mysteries of the 20th century.
Well, thanks to Smokey, and now Adam, I'm going off the idea of lighthouses, so I'll give you a bit of background to the film instead. The Dark Light was the 4th and final film made by Hammer at Gilston Park. It finds 3 lighthouse men at risk from a gang of bank robbers on the run with £100,000. The men rescue the thieves, and among them, there's a woman. While they might be master criminals, they're not very good on the sea, and they've been adrift in their escape boat for hours. The lighthouse men subsequently find themselves divided as to whether they should help the group escape to France for a share in the kitty, or tell the law. The Dark Light is notable for being the first film produced by the 23-year-old Michael Carreras, and along with the other new faces on a Hammer film, Jack Stewart would go on to PC-49 next, and Mrs. Vernon Sewell herself, Joan Carroll, who might not be the finest actress, but she can half scream, would appear again in a couple of years' time. As far as the old faces go, look no further than Norman McCowan as poor old Rigby, the Lighthouse's by-the-book, soon-to-retire skipper, who looks like he's going to keel over at any minute. Here's Ben Taylorson to talk about this soon-to-be Portsmouth pensioner and a few others that are going to join that select Darby and Joan club.
When Rigby the lighthouse keeper announces that he is a mere 16 days away from retirement after 35 years of service, the seasoned film fan knows that means only one thing. Those 16 days are going to be far from smooth sailing. Or indeed, smooth lighthouse tending. This particular cinematic trope is known as retirony, an amalgamation of the words retirement and irony. You have a character who has toiled his or her entire working life, usually in a dangerous or unforgiving profession, and just at the point where they're about to withdraw quietly into an idyllic life of tending to the garden, falling asleep in front of Countdown, and succumbing to telemarketing scams, fate has other ideas. Retirony is a clever, bittersweet storytelling tool used in countless films as well as other media. Bitter in the sense of denial of a smooth passage to retirement that has been earned over many years of work and sacrifice, be it sacrifice of time, relationships, or alternative pursuits, and sweet in the sense that we, the viewer, see our protagonist embroiled in the biggest or most eventful moment or adventure of their career. And by eventful, and let's not dance around the bush/lighthouse here, we might well mean one that culminates in the character's death before they even get to use their free bus pass. In a storytelling sense, it is a simple way to build sympathy quickly and effectively for a character. Retirement equates to a life outside of work. That, therefore, makes us see poor old Rigby as more than just a man who replaces massive light bulbs and tests foghorn every 18 hours. He's not just a number, or merely a stereotypically haggard salty sea dog. He's a human man, one that likes chrysanthemums and everything. And as I've already alluded to, in its purest sense, retirony results in the death of the character just before he or she receives the gold watch and the card signed by everyone in the office/lighthouse. But you only have to see how this trope is parodied in series such as The Simpsons and films such as the lesser appreciated Arnold Schwarzenegger classic Last Action Hero to know that it has become so well known as to become joked about. So let's have a quick look at a few examples of the trope and how it's been adapted. One example of it played straight and simple is in the 1985 William Friedkin oddity To Live and Die in LA, in which LA-based Secret Service agent Richie Chance's partner and friend Jim Hart is killed during an investigation into counterfeit money a mere 2 days before Jim's retirement. Unsurprisingly, this results in Richie becoming obsessed with tracking down the killer. More frequently, however, the trope is inverted, so it's not necessarily the character on the brink of retirement who suffers owing to that significant impending life event. Take perhaps the most well-known example, Lethal Weapon. Well, actually, technically Lethal Weapon 3. Sure, Detective Murtaugh whinges constantly about being too old for this stuff throughout the entire franchise, but it's not until the third installment that he's actually due to retire when it all goes pear-shaped. Again. Although I'm splitting hairs here a little bit, as throughout every film in the series, the underlying theme is that Murtaugh would be cruising towards retirement had he not been paired with his somewhat unhinged partner Martin Riggs. But the important thing is that the retirony doesn't just affect Murtaugh. Sticking with a police theme, in David Mackenzie's 2016 movie Hell or High Water, Texas Ranger Marcus Hamilton is on the verge of retirement when he's assigned, along with his partner, to investigate a spate of bank robberies. Here it's not him who pays the ultimate price for having the audacity to want to retire, but it does ensure his latter years are unlikely to be spent peacefully. Similarly, in David Fincher's Seven, Detective Somerset is on the verge of retirement when he is assigned a new partner to investigate a series of bizarre and brutal crimes. The cursed retirement analogy once more plays out, but again Somerset suffers indirectly, with those around him suffering further still. And there are countless other examples. Alien Nation, Sin City, Falling Down, The Guardian. The list goes on. But let's finish with a moment of real-life retirony that formed the basis for one of the most successful movies ever produced. According to the authors of the book On a Sea of Glass, Titanic historians Bill Wormstead, J. Kent Layton and Tad Fitch conclude that Captain E.J. Smith's retirement was likely after the maiden voyage of the unsinkable liner. They state, "So although far more ironic in hindsight, it seems Captain Smith's career was extended for a few months past the end of 1911 in order to give him the honour of taking out the Titanic. Not only would this have been a wonderful thank you from a grateful company, but it would have served a dual purpose of ensuring that the skipper, experienced with ships of the Titanic's ilk, would have been at the helm during the maiden voyage. Which leads me to recall the line from Steven Spielberg's 1991 movie Hook, where Robin Williams' Peter Panning, crippled by a fear of flying, asks, "If it's your time to go, it's your time to go. But what if it's the pilot's time to go?"
Well, we've danced around it for long enough. Now all four of us are going to get together and talk about The Dark Light. Will we love it? Will we hate it? Will we be divided? Or will we just think, yeah, it's kind of a middling film? Oh, can tell. The suspense.
There's one place I'd like to start talking about this film, which is the location, or locations. So this was filmed partially at Gilston Park, but more predominantly it was filmed at Nab Tower Lighthouse. And let's talk a bit about the location, because it really is at the heart of the film. So what do you guys think of sort of how it comes across?
It's very strange. When this film starts, you start on a boat, which then rocks up to a lighthouse that looks like a shed inside, but not outside. And then a lady screams. The Zoom scream, I have to say, is probably my favourite moment in all of cinema.
Yeah, but as well as that, you've got sound design combined with that. So you've got dong, then which is brilliant.
Those are the natural sounds of a lighthouse, kid.
Yes, it's the
Kev
sound
Moore
of the
is available for Foley work.
those are the sounds you hear when you put a shell against your ear. Anyway, so basically, she screams, and those sounds happen, and then it cuts to three men. I thought it was a boat. I thought, oh, now they're going to rock up to Slough. It took me about 20 minutes to work out what was going on in this film. It doesn't do a great job of establishing where you are at any time, I think. But once, the main plot kicks off, which is about 20, 25 minutes in, it feels like a lighthouse. And especially with all the slammy doors and the metal ladders and the... I won't ruin the ending yet, but... it's fine. Lots of it takes place inside. The outside bits, you can't tell if you're on a boat or a lighthouse. But yeah, it's fine. I mean, it's a quote quickie. So yeah, good.
I think that's very important to point out right from the beginning. If there was ever a film that we've reviewed that could be classed as one of Hammer's quote quickies, this is it. We've had a couple already. Not to dismiss them at all, but this is definitely one of them. I mean, it's a 3-act film. It's a stage play at best. I mean, you could get away with this as a stage play easily. Not a problem. Unfortunately, I think some of the actors also think that way as well. And so it comes across as a little stilted and a little forced in a couple of places. But I think, to its credit, I mean, you say that, Adam, but I get where you're coming from about it kind of being shed-like, but they do give you, we've talked about this before, they do give you a bit of a sense of scale and a sense of geography about where you can go and where you can't on this lighthouse. Yeah, and I kind of like that. I thought they utilised that quite well.
Well, I mean, you do get shots from the beginning. Let's ignore the first 5 minutes of the film, because it's basically a ship's crew arriving at the lighthouse, wondering why the light's off, and investigating. They discover something sinister. And then you cut to the main story, which is the guys on the lighthouse. You go back in time and you see what's happened before the ships arrived there. So if you discount the first bit, you've got them looking out to sea. So they've obviously gone onto location to film, which is great. It's a shame the film stock's not a bit better, because there's a shot where he looks through the telescope and sees a lifeboat, and there's like it looks like a tribble. The lifeboat just slightly moving, with all this grainy like sea around it. And the other guy comes up to the mic, the telescope. He puts his eye to it and he goes, "Golly gosh, there's a woman." It's right. You go, really? And then it shows the shot again, and you're like, still not getting how you knew that was a woman.
I think Johnny's just basically after any sort of no-tail he can find.
I just want to quickly say, I love Johnny's hair. Johnny's hair is, because he comes on and he looks like a very posh football hooligan. Right? He's got like nothing on apart from a woolen tank top.
Yes.
And this, like, it has to be said, it is a microphone. It's a giant. He looks like a better class of a football hooligan.
I think you're all being a bit harsh on the location, frankly. I think they do a very convincing job of making you feel as though you're in that lighthouse. I felt that. More so, I think, than any Hammer film I've watched so far. I felt as though this gained plaudit because it felt as though they'd utilised the unusual location as much as they had. Yes, if I sat down and analysed, I could probably work out which bits were Gilston Park and which bits are the lighthouse, but it felt to me like it was mostly on it. I felt the claustrophobia because of that. And yeah, when you know a little bit more about the location that they picked, as Kev has talked about already, it's it makes for a bit of a unique experience. Yeah, I mean, I go back to your comments about being a quickie. I don't disagree, and yet I feel as though this being original material as opposed to being borrowed or adapted work actually stands out pretty nicely. It feels more like an hour TV special or, a short story that you would expect as maybe one a week on, sort of a different story every week under the sort of the banner of, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, Tales of the Unexpected or something like that.
Yeah.
More than it does a feature presentation, which I think goes hand in hand with talking about something as a B picture. But, it takes an hour to get across what I think is a reasonably interesting story in a reasonably interesting location. And, I'm going to give it credit for that.
Well, I take your point about it definitely, you do feel like you're on location, definitely. But it's just a shame they don't make more of the lighthouse itself. You get an interior room, you get a staircase, you get a view out to sea, and it's like, it's a really interesting environment you've got. You could play with it a bit more. You don't even see the lantern really until the end when the captain gets up there and does something. It's like, it just felt like it could have been a bloody oil rig and you wouldn't have known, it's just like, why a lighthouse if you're not going to use it a little bit more? I'll tell you what I did like though, the end of the film, there's a scene in a rowboat that goes on. This is quite an extended scene, but they actually get out there and do it on the rowboat. I mean, you don't ever feel like you're watching a green screen or, some kind of rear projection or anything like that. No. You feel like you're on the waves with them, and that's really impressive. Or they do have to dub the voices, obviously, because out at sea in a rowboat. Before the days of, battery-operated tape recorders, they just had to film them silently and get them to dub the lines afterwards. So there is an eerie silence and a very pure voice, and it's slightly out of sync with the lips at all times. But I have to applaud that bit. I thought that was fantastic. It's when you really get a sense, when someone falls over the side, they're gone. You don't feel like they're just, they fell onto a mattress next to the boat or anything like that. So yeah, I do think the locations are great. I love the fact they filmed on location. I just think it was a little bit of a waste not showing a bit more of the lighthouse.
I feel like it's probably the bravest move Hammer have done so far, to be honest, because let's face it, we've been cooped up in a country house now for the last God knows how many years. I'm getting cabin fever just thinking about it. Granted, we're back in a cabin again, but at least it's somewhere else. But it's just the fact that it must have been a logistical nightmare just getting a camera crew, a sound crew, and everybody else out there, and setting up on what is, in all intents and purposes, a place that you can't actually film very easily in. It's a very bold move to go from the comfort of a country manor to the middle of nowhere, and hope to God that you can actually get something that you can work with.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm glad you pointed out, though, Kev, because I think it needs pointing out that we're going back a little bit. Well, actually, a lot of bit to where we started. I mean, this is a continuation of Mary Celeste, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So
very similar themes.
Exactly. So you've got to give it credit, as you said there, Kev, which is that they're not in a studio somewhere lozing a bucket of water at Bela Lugosi's face. You know, they're out there. They're actually getting wet and damp and having to dry their clothes and all this, and where you fit the cameramen and the sound people and everything else. This is real as you want to be for an acting situation. But where Mary Celeste, even though we all rated that film quite highly, you know, because it was quite impressive for what it did at the time. This just takes it that little step further. And that is definitely to this film's credit, because why the hell not? You know, they obviously had access to this lighthouse. They had access to the previous location with the country house and everything else. Why not use it? Why not use it to your advantage? And as you say, great to see that Hammer actually took that chance and did it. It's fantastic.
I think what I found quite interesting was the portrayal of the three lighthouse keepers as well. So that's, as Adam's already mentioned, the scene where, and I completely agree, it does take you a few minutes to work out exactly are they meant to be in a lighthouse, or what on earth is going on here.
Sure.
Are these our heroes or are these our villains? I think I was thinking for the first few minutes. But it does lend itself to the question, are there only 3 activities that lighthouse keepers can undertake? So if you're not cutting pictures of girls out of magazines or making ships in bottles, you are apparently throwing playing cards at a pipe. Yeah. And you think that isn't going to pass the time very satisfactorily for the 20 days between food, water and relief.
You've obviously not played Cardy Pipey enough, that's all I can say.
Well, neither had he, because he appeared to have never thrown a playing card in his life.
Did you see that one that just falls out of his hand?
Yeah, I did. It did, yeah. No, we'll just do this in one take, no problem. I think, but it does, in that little scene, it does paint a reasonably decent portrayal of what it might be like to be holed up with 2 other people, you know, in a sort of reasonably uncomfortable environment. But I did think, why are all 3 of you having shouldn't somebody be making sure the light's on or doing other things that lighthouse keepers do?
Working in shifts.
What did you think? I think the question I'm leading into is what did you think of the cast and their performances overall?
I think they're all really good, actually. First time I saw this, we did have a quick call the other day, and I said I was really struggling to hook into what was going on, and I restarted the film, and I think I restarted it 3 times. But I think the problem is the framework of the plot is slightly alienating, because you get to 10 minutes and then you got an entirely new set of characters, and then you get more characters coming in, and it's kind of hard to know, who am I supposed to be following? What's the thread? What's the plot line? Where am I in time? You do work it out, but I just think it's slightly, it needed work on the script maybe. But that said, the characters are all really interesting. Like, you have Johnny, the big lunkhead, who, you know, is obviously girl crazy, and he rescues a girl. It's slightly uncomfortable because he's a bit leery, but he's basically the moral compass of the film by the end of it. Then you have the captain, who's your traditional sort of salty captain. You find out he's retiring soon. He doesn't want to take any chances. Then you have the other guy who works on the lighthouse, and he's a bit shiftier and do anything for money. Then you have the 3 that are rescued, and the girl is really ambiguous to begin with. You kind of get the feeling like her flirtations with Johnny are genuine, and then suddenly later on they do become genuine, and then suddenly they switch away again, and you get the feeling that's quite a well-drawn character, really, because she's obviously a survivalist, and she's doing what she needs to do to get off the thing. She doesn't want to care who she hurts and whatever. The 2 villains, the main villain's kind of a nothing. He just, you know, I need to get back to Rand, you know, I'll pay you money. And that's all there is. He's a bit paper thin. The other guy with the gun is a bit more in the sort of
Luigi.
Hired hand.
Luigi.
That's his name, Luigi.
I know, the most Italian
Mario's
Luigi ever.
Yeah.
He's a bit.
So you've got a non-Italian Luigi, and you've also got a very German Welshman.
Yeah.
But apart from that,
I mean, Luigi, the guy, Martin Benson, that plays Luigi, is born in Tottenham to a Russian and Polish man and woman. So nowhere near Italy at any time.
I think the characters are all really well drawn, and the plot once it kicks off is really good. I don't have any problems with the characters at all. I think they're quite memorable. I can remember them now and what they were doing. And yeah.
I think just a quick thing to say about the way in which the film is framed. It's bookended, and it is a little bit clumsy, particularly because there's right at the beginning of the film, there's a newspaper article that says basically the light in this lighthouse is out, and no one knows why. And we're led to believe that newspaper report must come from the team of people we then watch investigating it, but we then learn that they investigate far more than just the light being out, which makes you wonder who on earth these people are then, because they're clearly not the people who found the fact that the light was out in the first place. You think, I'm now a bit confused as to who these people are and what exactly they're doing. And then, as you say, there's no explanation for how they interact with the story that then drops back at 24 hours, 48 hours. Yeah. And there's no sort of title card that says, and now we go back 48 hours. And it does take you a little while to work out, okay, these things are connected. Mm-hmm. And then we end up going back to our initial investigation team later, but it isn't an actual bookend to the film, because then we go back to the rowing boat where the actual action is happening. And do we think, is this a Dunkirk thing? Is this in real time? Is it playing out 3 times fast?
That's exactly what I was thinking, yeah. Yeah, because it basically cycles back and you end up with them actually working at exactly the same time, because the action takes place on the lighthouse during, the flashback. But then obviously once they get off the lighthouse, they're off the lighthouse for a short while, because the people from the yacht that come into the lighthouse, the teapot is still hot. Mm-hmm. They notice that straight away.
I think the problem is that the framing device doesn't need to be in it at all. This is a 60-minute film that I think they just tried to pad out with a bit of, or maybe a bit of intrigue, or make it a bit Mary Celeste-y in a way, and let's set up a thing, and then we'll show you what happened. It doesn't really work. And like you say, Ben, if it would have worked if it had framed the thing, beginning and end, but because it frames it and then you flash back and then you go back to where they are and then it shows you what's happening in the main story in real time. It reminded me a bit of Room to Let, where you get this framing device and all the way through you're thinking, I don't think they needed that framing device. And at the end, it turns out you really did. But at the end of this, you go, no, it was absolutely useless.
Didn't need it at all.
Yeah, because those characters don't know anything more than we do. In fact, they know less. So it makes it utterly redundant.
Yeah.
Also, the fact is that they're supposedly some form of the Coast Guard.
Yeah.
And yet, they're rather somewhat clueless, scared and jumpy at every turn. It kind of seems weird for the 4th emergency service, doesn't it? You know what I mean? So
see, the thing is, I know exactly what you're saying, but I don't think they are the Coast Guard.
I think they just happen to cross it.
I think they were just
in uniform.
Yeah, but they all dress like that.
That's just what you do when you're out on your yacht. No, honestly, genuinely, I had this discussion with my wife when we were watching it, because I thought exactly what you thought, Smokes. I thought they were the Coast Guard, and she says, no, they're just passing in their yacht. And you watch it again, and she's absolutely right. They are. They're meant to be the people to whom the newspaper article is alluding, who have discovered the fact the light is out. But the newspaper article then doesn't make any sense, because they don't also say, oh yes, and they found a corpse.
Well, yeah, fair dues. Oh, well, that makes a lot more sense, because I just saw the uniform and I just assumed, but that's fair enough.
He's not even got his stripes.
That's what sailors are.
Yeah.
Okay, well.
He's just Terry Scott.
I haven't hung around as many sailors as you have, my friend.
It's like a replica football shirt. That's what it is.
Is that what it is?
He feels like he's the captain because he's got his replica yachtsman.
Fair enough. I'm glad you've mentioned that, though. Can we just mention... we were talking about the cast. Can we just mention the skipper, Norman McCowan, who plays the skipper?
Yes.
I mean, he for me is. You say all the cast is great, Adam, but he for me is the cherry on the top. I thought he was excellent.
Smoky,
unexpected surprise.
Yeah.
You know what his last film was? Just out of interest.
I did look this up earlier. Was it?
He's the Reverend in.
Was it City of the Dead?
City of the Dead. Yeah, he's the blind Reverend.
Yeah. And yeah, now I think about it, I really recognize him as well. But he's just, he has that perfect balance of kindly old grandpa to sticking to the rules authoritarian. And it just came across so well in both sides of it. He was all, yes, my dear, I will do anything that I can to help you. Yes, sir, I will do anything I can to help you. But these are the rules and I'm sticking to them. deal with it. And I loved that side. I thought that was excellent. I thought he played the part very, very well. In a cast that was actually pretty damn solid all the way through. He was the crown prince at the top of the pile for me.
You just know he had a pocket full of Werther's originals.
Oh, too right, yeah.
I think the question I'd like to ask now is how effective overall do you think the film is? So we've talked about the plot and some of its misgivings and some of it, but for what it was trying to achieve, so it's attempting to be a sort of a mystery thriller, a crime mystery thriller. How effective do you think it was in its ambitions and its achievements, Kev?
I thought it was really effective in what it's set out to do. It's got some minor faults, like they've apparently robbed a bank of £10,000, and you think these £100,000, even worse, because you think, hang on a minute, these people have just got them old big notes. You'd have enough paper to actually cover the whole lighthouse.
A3.
Yeah, exactly.
A3 for fivers, yeah.
There's no way they've got that in a briefcase. I'm sorry, but no.
It's the business plan again, isn't it?
Oh, of course it is. Mr. Logistics strikes again.
But there's some lovely touches as well. You know, it's really detailed. When you start looking at it, there's like the sound of the generators is running all the way through. And he does actually mention that at one point, you know, and he says, oh, you just learn to live with it, you don't notice it. And it's like when I worked at a fish merchant, you don't smell fish. You know, it's the same kind of thing. You just don't notice it. And probably the same with Chanel No. 5 as well. If you work with that long enough, you can't smell it either. But yeah, there's some lovely embellishments, you know, that make you feel like you've actually got some genuine peril. You know, you do feel for the three guys on there for a start off. And well, it soon becomes quite obvious, you know, that they're quite in peril.
I think as well, like I said, it took me a while to get my hooks into it because I think the framing device is just a bit disorientating and not very well handled. But as soon as the shipwrecked people get onto the lighthouse, it becomes this sort of one camp against the other camp and trying to corrupt the good guys into taking them to shore, and the woman works her wiles, and Luigi forms a plot to get rid of the captain. I think all that's brilliant. And the moment they get into the bit where they leave, actually, and Luigi runs back up, and I won't spoil it for anyone, but he does something quite dastardly. I thought that was pretty thrilling. I was watching a certain person be pursued.
Agreed.
There's you see why the light's not working, shall we say, and then a horrifying event takes place. And I thought, wow, that's actually really effective. And then they get into the boat, and the remaining people head for shore. And it's then that when they're all confined, that the tender alliance between the two camps just breaks down completely. And in the end, you're left with one survivor from one camp and another survivor from another camp. And it became a little bit like The Thing. It's almost like, it's your move or mine. What's gonna happen? And they're rowing to shore, and the good guy, shall we say, refuses to give in to his beastlier side, shall we say? His more primal side. Even though he's been saying all the way through that, my God, I wouldn't half like to own that. But anyway, I'm trying to be all tactful about it. But basically,
do you think perhaps...
was it a High Hazel autograph?
Do you think perhaps it was actually meant to be a 16-year-old or a 15-year-old rather than somebody that was sort of 28?
Oh, you mean Johnny?
Johnny.
You mean Johnny's
maybe in mental age, but I didn't. I think he's a bit too big and beefy. They could have gone for someone younger than that. I think that would have really worked.
Yeah,
but when the ending is basically it's her and him, Johnny, left in the boat. And they're rowing back to shore, and he's got the chance to take the money and take the girl, probably get stabbed in the back in a year's time, and she'll run off. But he chooses instead to row her back to her fate, and it's a bit Maltese Falconish. It's a bit The Thing. It's just two people left, and one of them says, I'm going to do the right thing, and he's rowing back to shore. I think without the framing device bits, it would have been a lot tighter and a bit more like... Because when you're in the boat, all this conflict's happening. You cut back to the people on the yacht, and they're sort of like going, "Oh, I wonder what happened here. I found a blah, blah, blah." And you're like, "Get back to the frigging boat!" I don't know what you're talking about. It's completely redundant. I would say though, one of the complaints that you guys had about To Have and To Hold was that it just stops. I did think the ending of this film, The Dark Light, was slightly ineffective because he's like, "No, I'm taking you back." And she goes, "No, no, no." And then it's just the end just pops up and you're like, "What?" But then if you think about it, I kind of like the fact that it was bleak in that way. I don't need to see him rocking up to the beach and asking for a policeman and her saying a tearful goodbye. Why not just let it end on the waves? So I think I didn't get my hooks into this, as I said to you guys the other day, but I actually think it's a really good film, and I think with a few cuts to it, it would be an even better film. But
well, you said about Linda having an interesting twist and survival instincts and what have you. She's actually left in the boat with Johnny, and it's kind of an odd way that he ends up being the hero, if you like. But then you think about it, and it's just like Johnny is possibly the weakest link in this whole film. You know, he's the one that is the least convincing as a character, partly because I do feel like he's being cast older than the character himself. But as well as that, we've actually got a man and a wife. They're actually really man and wife in the boat at the end.
Really?
Yeah, Catherine Blake was David Green's wife. They got married in 1948.
No way. So they were man and wife acting against each other.
Yeah, so that flirty interplay that you get at the beginning, you see, it was actually...
That actually makes quite a lot of sense, Kev, because I did think they had a bit of chemistry between them. So, no, wasn't he married like 7 times, though?
But he found his calling in the end as well, because he dumped acting. This was his last film. He did a TV play, and then that was it, and went on to be a director, and he directed stuff like I Start Counting and Grey Lady Down, which me and Ben both love.
Grey Lady Down, indeed. Well, we do, yes. What I need is propulsion.
But again, he's back to the sea.
So, gentlemen, in a time-honoured fashion, it's, I'm asking for your rating and your final thoughts. So we'll go to Smokey first.
Okay, I enjoyed this. I just think it was too long. There was at least a good 10 minutes you could cut out of this. I mean, I'm sure Kev would have loved this scene. There was a scene full of rules and regulations and why paperwork had to be filled out.
Oh, you've no idea.
It was like filling in the accident book at work that it needed to be done.
Absolutely.
You know, and whilst it may need to be done in the real world, it didn't need to be done on my television screen while I was watching it for 10 minutes.
That was the best part of the film.
Oh, but it does, sir.
No,
it does, sir. The regulations, sir.
Who gives a
Oh dear.
And then that last 10 minutes of just constant rowing. And it was just stop rowing, or just show them how to get into the end, or whatever. And we haven't mentioned the fact, by the way, is that there is a completely, as Adam said, there's a completely superfluous scene of something you don't need to see, which is that they do get in contact with the police. The police are gathering as an army to meet these nasty people on the beach as soon as they pull up. Does it impact the story or whatever happens to our heroes and villains? No, not in the slightest. And so it just became a frustrating amalgamation of what should have been a really tight mutiny story against a charming old skipper. You know, that you could have had it. You could have had that. You could have had idyllic loneliness, isolation at the start. You could have had the nasty people arriving, mutiny, end. Beautiful. That's perfect. But they didn't do that, unfortunately. But there are a lot of positives. It flowed along quite well. Acting performance is great. And the location was wonderful too. But, just too many down points for me. I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10 on this one.
Adam?
It took me a while, like I say, to get into the story. I think it's structurally unsound. I think you could chop away a third of it and it would be a better better experience, it would be River Patrol, I think, if you could refine it slightly.
Don't talk it up to what it can't achieve to be.
Ocean Patrol.
Monsters.
Come at me. Ocean Patrol. British Channel Patrol. Anyway, I actually enjoyed this way more than I thought I did. And talking about it with you guys just made me realise that I actually enjoyed it a lot more than I first gave it credit for. It took me a while to get my hands around the story, and I think in the hands of a tighter director, it would have been a lot less fatty. I think there's a lot too much fat on this thing. But that said, I do think it's a really good tale of corruption. I love the second and third act, minus the framing device. And I thought all the characters were really, really memorable. I can actually picture their faces now, and I saw it a few days ago, and I think it was just a really clever story to tell. So I give it a 7.5 out of 10. Not quite an 8, but not as low as it was, like in between. But yeah, I thought it was really good. And actually, I said about the ending earlier on about how it just stopped. I think that's actually a strength. I think that's quite a nice way to end it. So yeah, 7.5.
Kev?
Well, I absolutely love this film, right? I've thought about it, and it's close to perfection if it wasn't for Johnny and his casting. I think it's unfortunate that you just happen to have somebody that's straight out of Amdram doing it. It's a shame. He's the one that lets it down. It's a 9 out of 10 for me. It made me really happy because we'd actually got out and about for a while, which was a nice change. The score by Frank Spencer, wow, when it opens up, Christ almighty. It's like listening to Corn Gold or something like that. It's massive. It's just like...
You don't have to go all out on it.
Wow, yeah. The score on this is pitch perfect. I absolutely love the narrative on this. You know, the way that the story actually loops around on itself. I feel like that's great. The stunt work. I love the stunt work. It's a while since we've seen anybody fall off anything high. And that seems to be something that we've been missing for a while. I love the ending. I mean, how did he get her over the beach for a start off? And
he's a big chap.
I know he is a big chap, but don't forget he's got Luigi still to contend with as well. That's asleep in the back of the boat.
Throw him overboard.
Yeah, throw him overboard. Nobody will notice.
It's just dead weight.
But then,
Used him as an anchor.
Yeah, but then even if he does manage to tackle them and get them both across the beach, are the police going to be there in time? You know, so you've still got this whole dilemma, and I love the way that it finishes where you just don't know what is going to go down. I mean, he's already outnumbered. He's outnumbered, and he's probably going to be outgunned. So, yeah, it's good. 9 out of 10.
I think in conclusion for me, Kev, I'd go back to something you pointed out about how they use the location and then sort of immerse you in it with the sounds, you know, the kind of constant engine, the foghorn, the signal. I just felt like I was on that lighthouse for 50 minutes before we spent 10 minutes rowing. So for me, it's an 8. I didn't like the end. I thought I'd rather have had a much more conclusive ending. And I'd agree that I felt even at an hour that it could be trimmed a little bit. But I really enjoyed it. And to echo again, Kev, what you said, it was so nice to be in a different location and feel like we were actually there, not a stately home, not a, again, just for once, not the problems of posh people.
Yeah.
A completely different story. And, I felt immersed in the world. So, I really liked it. So it's an 8 for me.
No pub, minus 5 points.
Good point.
I have a quiz, guys. Do you feel like playing it?
Oh,
go on then.
Oh, quiz me.
Okay, so I'm going to give you a phrase or a word, and you have to tell me whether it's something to do with a lighthouse or something to do with the White House. Okay. Or
do you have a name for this quiz?
Yes, I do. Hang on a second, I'm getting there. Or it could be neither. So are you ready to play Lighthouse, White House, or Shite House?
I was born ready.
Okay.
He's been reading from the Ben Taylorson Book of Quizzes.
It's
Your
a very
first
big
word is vermeil.
How does this work? Do we write this down?
No,
or
just tell me what you think. Ben, what do you think?
In what order are we? I'm going to say White House.
White House, okay.
Yeah,
Kev?
I'm going to go that too.
I'll go White House.
Okay, you're right. The vermeil room is in the White House. So 1 point each.
You notice how I went and all the followers followed.
You're an influencer.
Saying, there should be extra points if you say it first. But anyway, no, it's your quiz though, Adam.
Ben,
So you
Ben, don't start.
So I'll start with someone else this time, it's fine. Anyway, Lighthouse, White House, or Shite House? Cupola. Kev, you go first. Cupola.
Shite House.
Shite House. Smoky?
How are you spelling that?
Doesn't matter. Cupola.
I'm just interested.
I'm not telling you.
You can't Google it.
Cupola.
I'm going Lighthouse.
So,
I'm going Lighthouse as well.
okay. Ben and Smoky have a point. It is the domed roof that sits above the lantern. Okay. You ready? Next word. Lighthouse, White House, or Shite House? Smoky. Mizzen. Mizzen.
I'm going Lighthouse again.
Okay. Ben? Mizzen.
Yeah, I'm going Lighthouse as well.
Okay. Kev? Mizzen.
I'm going Shite House. I think that's to do with boats. I think that's a mast.
Kev's right. Mizzen, get this,
Well done.
is a mariner's term for something you can't find. So it's literally mizzen.
Mizzen.
It's Mizzen.
It's mizzen. It ain't here.
I'd just like to point out, can I just point out though, if the mariner can't find the mast, Kev, there's major problems.
That's when you end up rowing back home.
Are you trying to say that the ancient mariner is actually Kev?
It all ties up nicely.
Maybe Kev's son.
Okay, next one. Lighthouse, White House, or Shite House? Ben. Lanthorn.
White House.
Okay. Kev. Lanthorn.
Yeah, White House.
Smoky. Lanthorn.
Shite House.
You're all wrong. It's lighthouse. It's ye olde word for the lantern in a lighthouse. The lanthorn.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, next one. Jimmy Polk.
I went to school with this.
Kev. Kev, you go first. Jimmy Polk.
Lighthouse.
Okay. Smokey.
White House.
White House. Ben.
I'll go Lighthouse.
Smokey's right. Jimmy Polk, or James Polk,
James
was
Polk
the
was the
11th
president.
of the United States.
I actually knew that as well.
So at the moment, Smokey's on 3, Ben's on 2, Kev's on 2. Okay, next one. The Astragals.
What?
Which sounds like a 1970s dance troupe. Smokey. The Astragals. Lighthouse, White House, or Shite House?
We are the Astragals.
Lighthouse.
Okay. Ben?
Lighthouse, yeah.
Kev?
White House.
Smokey gets a point and Ben gets a point. The Astragals are the metal rods that hold the storm panes together around the lantern, or lanthorn, as we know. Okay, you ready? Ben. Blackbeard's taint.
This could be any of them.
Isn't that Senator Blackbeard's
I'm going
taint?
Lighthouse.
Lighthouse. Kev?
Shite House.
Okay. Smokey?
Shite House.
Of course it's shite house. It's a nonsense word. Or a village.
Mate, in a world where Donald Trump was president, I'm not discounting anything that connects to the White House anymore.
True.
It could be a village in Cornwall. Okay. The Red Room.
Did you just make that up, by the way?
Yeah, I made it up. Yeah, Blackbeard's tank.
I just want it to be like I want it to be like a cocktail or something. That would be awesome.
I think I'm drinking it.
The Red Room, Kev.
Lighthouse.
Okay, Smokey.
White House.
Okay, Ben.
Shite house.
Ooh, all different.
Ooh.
Smokey takes it, though. Oh my God, you're romping away with it. It's a room in the White House that's been used as a parlour, a music room, and a meeting room.
I think I remember that from the American president. I think that's sticking in my head.
I was thinking of Twin Peaks, and that's all I could think of then.
Okay, Lighthouse, White House, or Shite House. Smokey. Mm-hmm. The Peach Melbatross.
Shite House.
Okay, Ben.
I'm going all out now. Lighthouse.
Okay, Kev.
Shite house.
His shite house. I can't believe Ben Lighthouse. Peach Melbatross.
Nothing left to lose. I can't catch him now. I don't know how sailors work.
I don't know how sailors work.
Okay. Thorn Gumbold Clough.
Gesundheit.
Oh, for Christ's sakes. White House.
Kev.
Shite house.
Okay, Smokey.
Lighthouse.
Smokey, all right. Thorn Gumbold Clough. Again. It's a name of a lighthouse in Yorkshire.
In Yorkshire.
Ben, you're allergic to right answers.
What is it is it in the middle of the county?
It says Yorkshire.
It got lost.
It's on I'm sure it's on the coast.
It's that famous Sheffield Lighthouse.
No, it's from Donny.
It's in the middle of the River Don.
Yeah, it is. We'll nick anything in Donny.
All right. The Indians' Vespers.
Are you sure it's not Bright House?
Kev, the Indians, the Indians' Vespers.
Oh my God. White House?
Smokey?
Lighthouse.
Okay. Ben?
I hate this place. White House.
Well, you got one right. It is White House. It's a painting that's hanging in white.
The comeback's on.
Oh, here we go.
Are there only if there's 50 more questions, I'm still in it.
There are enough questions for you to take the lead still, believe it or not. Okay.
Jesus.
Smokey. Lighthouse, White House, or Shite House? Lincoln's Brouhaha. I just love saying Lincoln's Brouhaha.
That's got to be a trick.
Or is it?
I know. I'll go play it safe. White House.
Okay. Ben?
See, now I think it is White House, but I've got to go against Smokey in my sad attempt to win. So I'm going to go Shite House.
Okay. Kev?
And I'm going in with Sad Ken over there and going Shite House.
Okay. The comeback is on. My goodness me, it's a shite house. Right. Kev, 7. Smokey, 8. Ben, 6. It's quite tight. Okay. Okay, Ben. Herd groin.
Lighthouse.
Okay. Kev?
Lighthouse.
Smokey?
Lighthouse for me as well.
You're all right. It's the name of a lighthouse in County Durham. Kev, the Widow's Walk.
Oh, isn't that the White House? I think that's the White House. Yeah, I'm going with that.
Smokey?
White House.
Okay. Ben?
So I'm going to say the White House as well.
You're all saying the White House. It's the lighthouse. It's the gantry that runs around the Landthorn.
Yeah.
It's where the widows go to look for their husbands who are missing at sea, apparently. That's what it goes.
Yeah, the widows walks behind the car on the Dallas highway.
Okay, last one then. And this could shift the score. Neptune's anus. Smokey?
Lighthouse.
Okay. Ben?
What was it again?
Neptune's anus.
The shite house.
Okay. Kev?
Yeah, shite house. I think you're playing it too calm.
Well, that has changed the scores because it was shite house. So
Yes!
Kev and Smokey are level pegging on 9 each, and Ben is on 8.
So no one wins is what we're saying.
Yeah, what we're saying is...
Get in! It's a draw!
Thank you for playing Lighthouse, White House, or Shite House.
I'll take that, because Kev always wins, so I'm quite happy to draw with Kev.
Yeah, see you later, loser.
Yeah, Ben.
No one won. That's all I'm saying.
Mermaids. I'm blaming Smokey's mermaids. But then you'll be surprised at just how many things you can blame on them. If you've enjoyed what you've heard, please pass it on like you would with chickenpox. If you've been affected by any of the issues raised here, you can contact us on Twitter and Instagram at HouseHammerPod. Or send us one of those electric letters to scream@househammerpodcast.com. Coming next, we have a film that Adam's very keen on that seems to be all about the weather in Manchester. So until then, it's goodbye.
From me, Ben Tillison.
From me, Smokey.
From me, Adam Roach.
And me, Kev.